episode of the Footy Game Day Squad show. I'm your host, Cal, and joining me today, I've got Kerm and I've got Tom. Fellas, how are we going?
Good. As you can see by Tom's shirt, we are both Boston Celtics fan, and we got the broom out against the Brooklyn Nets today. So today's been a very good day. A very, very good day.
Yeah, man, I've just been sweeping around the house all day today. You know what it is, brother. Let's get it.
Let's talk footy.
Yeah, you guys, I'm sure you could talk basketball all day. The playoffs have been fantastic. I even put some green on for you guys today just because I know how excited you are with your Boston Celtics. But we are here because of GameDay Squad, which is, of course, Australia's first and currently only fantasy sport blockchain fantasy game, launched with a footy game and a rugby league game. So if you are new to the channel, make sure you check out in the description below, gamedaysquad.com.au. Our platform is live, our packs are live. Go start building your team. We have competitions so close to being kicked off, so we can't wait to get into that. But we're here, as we always are, to do a review of round 6, and it was a great round of footy, obviously spread out with Anzac Day. But guys, as we always start off, we start off with right and wrong. Who wants to kick things off?
I'll kick us off here, and I got two Collingwood players to talk about here, which is, going to be iffy for the listeners. But last week I suggested that Brodie Grundy is going to have his get-right game, his best game of the year against Sam Draper and an injured midfield in Essendon. And he just went and did it. He had 33 hitouts and his best day on the ground as well. But he, as news has come through this morning, he's out for 12 weeks. So
he's finally listened to us, and then bang, 12 weeks out.
Might have put the mocker on him, but it's good to see him play some good fantasy footy before he went down, to be honest. And what I got wrong, and this takes us back into the preseason again, and where we did our predictions blog, our season predictions blog, which you can go find on the Game Day Squad website there on the blogs page. I actually had Patrick Lipinski to be the league's best recruit in the off-season, and after a fire, he came out of the blocks firing in round 1, but he's just gone a bit missing since. So with the likes of Will Brodie and Jordan Dawson as recruits for some other clubs, I can't see Lipinski getting that crown this year.
I love that.
Yeah, fair call.
Racing of trying to figure out who would be number 1. That's maybe something to think about for another day. Yeah. But yeah, Tom, who have you got winners and not winners and losers? We'll do that soon. Right and wrong.
Yeah, mate, let me get off with what's right and flick over to my little slide here. And this guy, that is my got right, we haven't been talking about him. His name is Max King, and we have not been speaking about him enough in our shows. This guy is having a blinder of a year, and it's just flying under the radar. I'm not sure what's happening here, but 17 goals so far this season. In his last game, he actually had a terrible outing, kicking his set shots. He had 7 behinds, and some of these shots he thought, he'd get quite easily, but despite all of this, he is currently only 4 goals away from tying Tommy Hawkins at the top with 20 for the season so far. He was winning the race heading into round 5, and round 6 saw some big performances from the players underneath him, which have taken over him essentially. But mate, he's having a dominant year, and expect a big response from Max King, and don't be surprised when he is back on top of the Coleman medal race. I mentioned him in the preseason. I said he was going to be a good player, and you just looked at the measurables for him, how tall he is, how dominant he can be, and we're just seeing it out there, and it's awesome to witness. And what I got wrong, Callum, I know you were quite big on this, and we're looking at the Western Bulldogs run over the next couple of weeks, and we're like, wow, they can really win every single one of these games and start securing a top spot in the AFL. But guess what? They dropped their first game against the Adelaide Crows, and they looked out of sorts in that one. They weren't getting the scoring shots that they normally get in games. Their inside 50s were just off. They're normally a classy team through the middle and in the inside 50, and just none of that was happening for them during that day. There's definitely some adjustments that need to be made here, or some fingers pulled out, but I'm not too worried. But I guess we both got that one wrong. I thought they're going to be red hot this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I said they'd win, 5 out of the next 6? So
yeah,
it's still on.
That might be the one. Who knows? But it wasn't a great start to that run, that's for sure.
Adelaide
and I'm sure we'll touch on it. Adelaide's a very weird team, but the Dogs are also a weird team where they can play poorly and they still turn out some big fantasy numbers.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't care if the Dogs are losing, don't care about them. But if their fantasy players on my team keep performing, then yeah, I don't mind. But I'll talk some more about that in a second, because what I got right, another Collingwood player, so I'm sure they're not going to mind, because they just obviously won Anzac Day yesterday, so they're not going to mind us piling on. But I told you at the start of the review show we did for Collingwood last year that Steele's side bottom shouldn't be anywhere near your fantasy team this year. He was fourth for the Pies last year, and he was the third highest scoring forward with 100 plus points last year. And I just said it was an absolute sell high opportunity. And this year, he haven't had a single game that's churned out more than 100, and he's averaging about 70 GDS points, which is not what you want, and definitely not what you would have been wanting if you'd picked him in, hoping he'd have another career year. So, yeah, not the output from him, and I definitely got that one right.
Oh, yeah.
I got a diamond card of him, and I'd be struggling to field him right now.
Oh, so that one we can see on the screen right there with the 1.4 multiplier.
Yep.
So even with that, he'd still be putting out about 110 or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, even then, it's like, is he a top 6 if he's pumping out those numbers? Something I got wrong, not so much wrong, but probably just hasn't been on my radar, and I just haven't given him the love that he deserves in 2022. Josh Dunkley. He's currently averaging 130 GDS points and is just having a career fantasy year. And this guy sits second in the average standings, only behind his running mate Bailey Smith. Now, I think the reason we don't talk about him as much is because he's not the star of like a Bont or a Petraka, but he's also not the young gun of like a Bailey Smith or a Brayshaw. But this guy, yeah, for me in particular, I need to wake up and actually start realizing how good this guy is, because he's starting to deserve fantasy star treatment. So yeah, it's something I've been getting wrong lately.
Guys, before we get into studs and duds, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. We've got all of our links in the description. We've got our Discord down there as well. You want to submit the packs that you're opening on GameDay Squad. And as you know, we've got Pack of the Week in our preview show every single week. And that is the best way to enter, is right there. But let's get into it. Studs and duds.
Get your
free packs. Exactly right.
Make sure you're getting involved.
The only thing better than packs is free packs. So, but studs and duds, round 6. I'm kicking it off here with game 1, which was GWS versus the Saints. The Saints got up in this one in quite a close game. I don't think the score does it quite justice of how competitive it was out there. But my stud of the game is Jack Higgins, and he was definitely the stud of this one. If you're watching him, wow, he was unbelievable. And after missing a sitter set shot in the first quarter, he has replied with going on an absolute tear this game. He scored 135 GameDay Squad fantasy points. And, you know, when you're just watching him, his crumbing work and his intelligence to back his midfield in to win stoppages and get free inside forward 50, leading to plenty of goals throughout the game. It was just very class from him. And in the dying moments of the game, he's handballed off to his teammate, running in on goal from 10 metres out, which would have been his 5th goal for the game. I'll go through his line here quickly. He had 13 kicks, 5 handballs, 9 marks, 3 tackles, 4 goals and 3 behinds. And, you know, as I mentioned, that handball was for his 5th. Very unselfish, very great team play, and a great team win from the Saints in that one. My dud of the game. Now, I was going to give this to Toby Green, and it's a bit rough, you know, first game back, didn't play so well, but there was a particular play in the game that I watched, and I went, this guy is getting my dud of the game, it doesn't matter. And it's Harry Himmelberg. He has stolen a set shot in the 4th quarter from 20 metres out. He's attempted to snap a goal, and he has missed horrendously. It was plays like this. Did you guys see this?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm watching this, and, it's just plays like that. On the other side, they're handballing off to runners on goal, giving up a goal, and then he's demanding the ball, trying to kick the ball off him. He didn't have a good day at all. He finished with 7 kicks, 2 handballs, 3 marks, 7 tackles, a goal, and 2 behinds. Very selfish play from him. Finished the day with 73 GameDay Squad fantasy points and got my dud of the game for that selfish play.
Tom's off him.
I'm so off him, man. When I was watching that, I was like, unbelievable.
He's marking him down. I know who my dad is. Oh, love it. Love it. I have game 2, which was that game we were speaking before about where the Crows got up against the Bulldogs. And yeah, I just want to say just quietly before I get into the stud of this game, how good is the Dogs as a midfield unit in fantasy at the moment?
A joke.
Just like
an absolute
fantasy-wise, obviously not getting the wins that they want, but fantasy-wise, just insane. Insane. But I did tell you I'd start giving some love to Dunkley, and it starts right here. 28 touches, 10 tackles, 7 marks, a goal. Best enough for a game high, 153 GDS points. So yeah, well and truly head and shoulders above everyone else there. On the other side, though, I've given it to someone from the winning team, and that dud goes to Josh Rochelle. So he's fallen back to earth with a season-low 47 GDS points, and he only had 9 touches, no goals, and just had no impact in a game where, fortunately, the Crows didn't need much from him. But, AFL Fantasy and AFL SuperCoach coaches would have already used him up now as a cash cow. I think he's sort of hit his break-even marks there. So would love to hear. With GameDay Squad, we're so close, but we're not up and running yet. But just what would people be doing with Josh Rochelle now? Would you be holding on for him, knowing that he's maybe tapped out and found it? But yeah, that he's my dud for the game, and maybe potentially one to watch for a little bit from how he goes from here.
I'll tell you what, the Bulldogs were lucky here not to get blown out. 15 behinds from the Adelaide Crows in this one. Just weren't kicking the ball very well on their set shots and inside the forward 50. It was only a 1-point game, as you guys can see there on screen, but it definitely could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, I didn't feel it. Cam, you've got game 3.
I do, and this one is close to your heart, Cal, because Port fans can rejoice after absolutely blowing out West Coast Eagles. 117-33, it never really looked like a game, and Port fans, you'll be relishing this. But my fantasy stud of the day...
Can I quickly tell you?
Yeah?
I didn't watch the game live,
Ooh.
chose other things, and I haven't watched the highlights.
Fair enough.
I don't know if I want to. I'm still off.
This is how defeated Callum is right now. He's so defeated.
Port had a win. I was like, yeah, against the Waffle team. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
If Todd Marshall's kicking 5, then it's it's not. Sorry,
Even with Tom
continue.
Barras. No, but all good. Fantasy stud of the game is Dan Houston, who I spoke about a couple of weeks ago, and he's having himself a quietly really good fantasy season, and it's just his kicking. He can accumulate so many kicks. He had another 25 against the West Coast Eagles here, running through the midfield and off the back flank as well. So Dan Houston is my stud, and my dud, this one hurts because it's a little bit close to home. I think in the off-season I wrote about him maybe 4 or 5 different times because I was so high on him. But Zack Butters, who admittedly picked up a little bit of a hit in the first half, in the first quarter, and was slow to recover. And then Rosie actually imposed himself onto the game in the midfield, which is one to watch. But Zack Butters was the 4th last fantasy scorer on Port Adelaide's team, and that includes the medical sub. So put that into perspective. He only mustered up 11 disposals.
Especially with the form that he's been in. But Callum, you put Kerm on the spot a couple of times. I want to put you on the spot here about a player for your team.
Ooh.
Your thoughts now on Jeremy Finlayson. And it's funny because you haven't watched the highlights, so you're not going to know what he did in this game.
I saw the stats.
Stat sheets.
5 goals.
And look, I said he was a high upside player for you. You weren't too big on him. Has anything changed, or you need to see a little bit more?
No, nothing's changed. When we do it against a team that's actually competitive, then I'll change my stance. Just for the record, I will get around to watching the highlights. It's just
That's
been
fair.
GameDay Squad keep me busy. I will sit down and watch it for our next game. But yeah, I'm not going to Finlayson. I'd be more excited with Rosie finally finding some.
Yeah, Rosie
that
was
guy's got
good.
some serious talent and just hasn't been the same since we lost in the prelim. So
Rosie was
fingers
really good.
crossed for him.
But 162 for Houston, 43 for Butters, GameDay Squad points. Tom, what do you got in the next game?
Yes, mate. I got the Fremantle Dockers versus the Carlton Blues, who the Dockers got up in this one, 97-62. I was quite stunned. I don't know if you guys were stunned. I thought the Carlton Blues had them all day. But my start of this game, who else other than Patrick Cripps? We're going to keep talking about him all year. He's going to keep coming up in this segment. The Blues lost, but it definitely wasn't on Cripps. He finished with a line of 10 kicks, 22 handballs, 4 marks, 5 tackles, 3 goals, and a behind for 142 GameDay Squad fantasy points. And we know how much better kicking scores rather than handballs. So if he converted a couple of more of those handballs into kicks, that score would have been really, really nasty on the day. Fantastic game from the skipper again in this one. And my dud of the game.
Just quickly, what I want to say, I think this is sort of proof that Paddy Cripps from a few years ago, when he won his MVP, is back. Because the last couple of years, if he didn't play well, Carlton didn't win. And if he played well, Carlton won. But here he is. He's having a good game regardless of what's going on around him, just like he did a few years ago. So, yeah, he's just going to keep operating at that high level, which as a fantasy fan, you just know that average is going to be up there all the time. So, yeah, love to see it.
Yeah, he's the score sheet, the definition of set and forget in your lineup right now. There's no reason to move him. But my dud of the game, with 28 GameDay Squad fantasy points, is Harry Mackay, which is quite surprising. He's been having a good year, but that's not a good game by his standards. And with only 5 of Carlton's 9 goals coming from the forwards in this game, it was very disappointing from the whole forward pack for the Blues. He finished with a line of 3 kicks, 0 handballs, and get ready for this one. 0 marks, 1 tackle, 1 goal, and a behind. Really tough day out for Harry in this one. Definitely expect him to bounce back from this though.
Yeah, shocker for him. Speaking of shockers, I had game 5, which was North beaten by the Cats, and just quietly North are once again the most boring game on the calendar every single week. They were exciting for me. I'm over Horn Francis, and I'm over watching North.
You're going there already. All right.
Yeah, my stud, easy one for this one, guys. He kicked 7 goals, and that's Jeremy Cameron. Game high, 150 GDS points, which for a forward is just a massive, massive day. 16 touches, 9 marks as well, so it wasn't just all from the goal square, but yeah, it just summed up how easy things were for the Cats against the Kangaroos. And I don't like saying this, but Todd Goldstein, dud, and officially not fantasy relevant for the rest of time. He's never going to be fantasy relevant again. 52 GDS points was one of his lowest scores on the ground, and was one of the lowest on the ground. He had 90% time on ground as well. So for being on it that much and only getting 1 mark and 3 kicks, it's just the game's past him. So I loved him for a long time, but I'm sorry, Goldie, this might be our final goodbye.
I agree with Kerm.
He's out. Get him out.
We just remove him from GameDay Squad. Just don't let anyone have him from here. We'll just save everyone from it.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll take us into the Q Clash here, which was, as a Suns fan, we all know, pile it on. We got beaten by Big Brother again, 132-80. Brisbane Lions taking this one out. But I've given the stud to a Suns player.
I was just going to say, before we get into that, we can't gloss over it. So, as everyone knows, we do the order. So, whatever the fixture rolls in, I get games sort of 2, 5, and 7. Tom 1, 3, and 7, or whatever the order is. Doesn't matter. But we have the same fixture, and sometimes it falls where you get your own team. And if that happens, I want to hear Kerm. The Suns, very, very, very disappointing output. What am I trying to say? Very disappointing output, because they just didn't fire a punch all day.
Yeah, from the get-go, it was over. They were the class team. We looked like we shot ourselves in the foot really early on in the first quarter with some just basic skill errors, which you just can't do against a team like the Brisbane Lions, who absolutely obliterated us way early on. The likes of Zach Bailey, Lockie Neal, McCluggage, Jared Lyons, who's stiff not to be a stud here. They were just too good, and they have been too good for as many Q clashes as there has been, to be honest, since I think 2011. But yeah, not always fun playing the Lions as a Suns fan.
No, and I was talking to a few Lions fans that are out, and I felt really bad. I've got this soft spot for the Suns now that I actually know a Suns fan, and they're like, oh, but they weren't expected to win, but I think the thing with the Suns, they just never win a game they shouldn't. It's never that sort of out of the blue, not saying that they should be beating the Lions, but just a bit of a surprise every now and again, just to show you're on the right track. But
come on, mate. Don't kick a man while he's down.
It just couldn't hurt. It couldn't
by some dark clouds again. They're coming. Clark is coming. But yeah, sorry. Get into your studs. I don't want to start tearing you up here.
No, that's okay. I like talking about Noah Anderson, and I've made him my stud sort of forcefully, because Lions did deserve to be the stud here. But Noah Anderson is a bright spot for us this year in fantasy, where Took Miller's been a little bit down. Jared Witts has been in and out. Matty Rowell hasn't hit the same ceiling as he did when he first made his debut. So Noah Anderson's been good. 33 disposals, 22 kicks, 11 handballs, 6 marks, and 4 tackles to go with it. He had a big day, and he had 140 GDS points. And my stud actually goes to Dane Zorko, who's been playing absolutely all over the shop. You can't really nail him down into a position right now. He's in back, forward, and in the mid. But against the Suns here, he only mustered up 13 disposals, 10 kicks, 3 handballs, 2 marks, and 5 tackles, which is not going to really do you any good in fantasy. Only 64 GDS points, so he was quiet when the Lions were having a big day.
Yeah, good ones.
Yeah, let me go in straight to the next game here. Game 7, Tigers versus the Demons. Demons got up in this one, 76-54. My start of the game is going to Clayton Oliver. He must have had leather poisoning after this one, because my goodness, could he find the footy. 20 kicks, 21 handballs. That's 41 disposals, guys. Unbelievable stats there already. 4 marks, 3 tackles, and a single behind to go with this monster outing. Demons are still the best team in the comp, and Oliver is a huge part of their success, finishing the game with 150 GameDay Squad fantasy points. That has stud written all over it. All over it. My dud of the game, though, goes to Tom Lynch. And despite kicking 2 goals in this game, I understand, look, he has a deep forward role. They don't really get the same output as the high forwards and the forwards that are getting a lot more ball usage up the ground. But it's just hurting his fantasy production, sitting in the goal square and not doing too much else other than taking marks and kicking goals. He's not being able to find the footy. He had 4 kicks, 2 handballs, 1 mark, 1 tackle, and of course the 2 goals that I mentioned for 41 GameDay Squad fantasy points in this one. Just not good enough. And for a great name like Tom Lynch, the skill that he has, how good he can be. We've seen it before. It's not like we haven't seen it. Yeah, not a good outing. He's got my dud for the game.
Yeah, he's horrible. He's a certified dud.
Duds can't win. Find your wins where you can. No, I like that. And we're putting him on the hot seat a fair bit this year. We're putting him on the blower because he hasn't been very good, Tom Lynch, has he? Game 8, Hawks versus the Swans. Really interesting game to watch, but straight into the dud. There's only one answer here, and that is Callum Mills, who had himself a round high.
Stud, you mean? Don't say dud for Callum Mills.
Stud. 109, the stud of the round. 193 GDS points. He had 23 kicks, 14 handballs, 11 marks, 6 frees, 4, which was wild. And of course, a beauty of a goal. So this was actually the single highest positive AFL rating score for the season so far. So AFLratings.com, they've got their own system for that. It eclipsed the second highest one, which was previously Lockie Neal against Essendon from earlier in the year. So the most elite performance, both from a GDS fantasy output and also from an AFL rating pointing for the round for quite some time. So massive stud. Dud, though, the curious case of Wingard continues because this guy, watching him, he looked electric, but he just doesn't find enough of the footy. 76 points isn't the worst score, but for someone who you're expecting to be in that sort of top 6 of forwards again, he just hasn't been there and has been nowhere near to his 2021 form. Like I said, every time he touched the ball, it was electric, setting up goals, looked dangerous. There was one time you talked about Himmelberg stealing the goal. Wingard was running it, had a set shot, very close, 40-degree angle, pretty close. He's a left footer, he was on the right side for it. And then he's trying to kick it back into the middle, and the guys ended up missing the set shot. And I'm like, Wingard, mate, just kick it. So, yeah, I don't know. I want him to be a little bit more selfish in those situations because I do want him having big fantasy outputs. But once again, he just hasn't been the player that I thought he was going to be.
Yeah, it's just owning that moment. Hey, if you have the set shot, it's your responsibility to go back and kick that. I agree with you there. There's no reason to give that off, and especially when he can open up the angle onto his favourite foot, and we've seen hundreds of goals from him. Come on, mate. Yeah. You can bury that. That's all day for you.
And final game.
The Anzac Day clash. Essendon versus Collingwood.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And a little peek behind the Iron Curtain. In the group chat, we actually were discussing how many disposals Darcy Parish was going to have after halftime when he was sitting on 30. I thought he was going to get a monster score, but he actually went off injured for a little bit in the third quarter. But he was still good enough to be my stud with 44 disposals, 13 of those being kicks, but 31 being handballs. And any danger of a couple of those being kicks would have been handy, but yeah, he was just everywhere. In the first half specifically, like, you couldn't go 30 seconds on a call without hearing Parish's name. It was crazy. He was absolutely everywhere. But my dud is someone I spoke about earlier on in the pod. It was Patrick Lipinski, who, as I said, since round 1 hasn't been hitting the stride that we thought he was going to kick on and be that player that was going to step into that role of being Pendlebury, Steele, Sidebottom, who are playing outside of the midfield now. But he had 18 touches, 11 handballs, 7 kicks, only 1 mark and only 4 tackles, which isn't really a good recipe, and only 67 GDS points. So, unfortunately, Paddy Lipinski is my dud.
Alrighty, guys. Our last couple of segments here. First, I'm going to show you the current rolling all GDS team, which, of course, is a recap of the highest scoring players that we have across, and that would make our all-Australian team if you would, but our GDS version here. Now, we started last week, so jump back if you didn't see that show in the last review where we talk a little bit more about it. So we're just going to talk about the changes that come in and out. In defence, we saw Sicily out and Witherden is in after us having a big raps on him in the last week. Pushed Cripps to the bench. Forward line, a bit of movement as well. DeGoey coming in with Danaher jumping out and Butters falling to the bench. So Tex Walker is threatening. He has the 4th highest average, but my little criteria is you have to have played more than half the games, and he has not done that, but he is threatening with his average. In the midfield, only one change. We had Smith in and Neal out. Smith obviously hadn't been in it because of that rule we had about the amount of games played. And in the rucks, no changes with Tim English holding out Maxi Gawn. So, yeah, what do you guys think of those changes that are coming in or out? Any surprises there?
Crazy English can hold Gawn out with a game less played. That's interesting.
Yeah, and look at this midfield. It's just the Western Bulldogs midfield, and then Treloar up forward, mate. They are just representing this year. We spoke about how good they are in terms of fantasy, and you can see it there. 4 players, all starting, meaning they're top 6 if you're their forwards, backs, and mids, and obviously the best ruckman in the comp right now. They are just stepping up, showing up every single game. It's great to see.
It's great, and something we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on as course, because we're going to start building our squads out for GameDay Squad, which is, like we said, so close for competition starting, and then we're going to be able to start talking to you about our teams and what we're planning to do. But guys, we're going to finish this up here today with buy, sell, and hold. Kerm, I'll kick it straight to you, and you can tell us what you're doing.
Let's do it. This is a bit of a cop-out, but I'm telling everyone to buy Nick Dacos. And we've spoken a lot about the Josh Wards of the fantasy world, the Jason Horne-Francises of the fantasy world, but Nick Dacos on this pod specifically has sort of gone a little bit under the radar because I guess we just assume that everyone knows how good he is. But just as a public service announcement, if you can go buy Nick Dacos, go and do it. I'm selling one of my own. I'm selling Jared Witts. He's been a star for the Suns when we needed him most, but he's 29 now and still playing good footy, but with only one rock spot available in GDS Fantasy and some good young talent coming through with Mabia Chol when he goes through there, and Mac Andrew, who looks like he's going to be making his debut soon, I'll be looking elsewhere. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame to put one of your own on the sell, but what are you going to do? And my hold is Zack Butters, and you can see it there on your screen. Just forget that the last game ever happened and move on. Just push it under the rug.
Oh, I love that. So, what have you gone with?
Yeah, mate. Look, my buy is Toby Green. And if you think last game is going to be a representation of the season that he's about to have in terms of fantasy, then think again. And if anyone is out there thinking that, then you've got to capitalise on their silly decision and go pick up Toby Green. He's going to be a good AFL fantasy player. He proved it last year. Then GWS really need him to be a good AFL fantasy player. They need him to get more involved. They haven't been looking like the same team as years prior. So having him back in the lineup is going to be really big for them. He's, of course, the leader of the team. And he's my buy right now. And
3 captains.
Oh, yes. And look at this. We've been ripping into this guy a bit, but Jack Zeeble. And my question of last round during round 6 preview show was, will Zeeble be heading back to be a defender for his team with Aaron Hall being out? The answer to that is no, guys. And the fantasy production in the forward line is nowhere near as good as what it was when he was a defender. So it is now time to sell Jack Zeeble. This was sort of the week, a really defining moment in terms of his fantasy season. And it's just gone the other way, unfortunately. They're going to keep him up forward. I'm not sure about that decision, but hey, we move on. We put our fantasy caps on. That's what we do. And hold is Cam Rayner. He's an X-Factor player for me, and if you've been holding on to him for this long, then I see no reason to be dropping a player like Cam Rayner now. He really hasn't had that game yet where he's started to explode or erupt in terms of fantasy production. But as the season goes on, the Brisbane Lions are a great team. He's an X-Factor player, and I can see his role and production stepping up later on in the year. So hold on to him because he could be a game changer for your team later on.
Great hold.
Yeah, great hold. We're running out of time, so I will quickly run through my buy, sell, and hold. But I'll try and do it with a little bit of pace here. Buy Tex Walker. Don't love the guy, but he's come back with 3 straight 100 plus GDS games, and is looking like he's got the Giants and Blues next couple of weeks. So I could see him getting another couple of big goals. He did drop off last year, so yeah, wait and see. But for me, don't wait and see. Go buy him because, yeah, you will benefit from it. Jack Martin is my sell. Kerm, You knew I was one of the last people on Martin Island, but I can't live here anymore. I've given up. He hasn't got worse. Fossey hasn't made him better, so I'm off. Sell your Jack Martins because it's over. The dream is over.
Get him out.
And a hold, Nick Vlaston. So he missed the first few rounds. He's only played the last couple, but I said he's been absolutely balling. 2 plus 100 games, even against the Demons last week. 150 GDS points. Probably unlucky to miss out on stud of the week here, but hey, he's been around for, this is his 11th season now, and this is his highest average so far, but only, like I said, 2 games. So has he figured it out, or is this actually just a high spot that will drop down? So my recommendation is don't jump on it yet, hold and wait and see. But guys, that's going to wrap us up here again for another episode of the Footy Game Day Squad Show. Like Tom said, if you have made it this far, make sure you are giving us a like and subscribe. Hit us up in the comments. We'd love to hear what you guys are thinking about it. And of course, check us out on Discord. We'd love to get involved and have a chat to you about our team. So until next time, guys, stay game day ready.